Welcome back to the Adventure Athletes podcast, world's #1 podcast for adventure athletes, celebrating those going through virtuous struggles in order to benefit the world around them. In this week's episode, I sit down with Stephen Whitworth, an ultra runner from the southwest coast of England who is trying to push past the 100-kilometre mark. In this week's episode, we talk about building an unbreakable mindset, dealing with imposter syndrome, how to get better every single day, the effects going sober has had on his life, and how running has helped him to open up. Now, at the end of each episode, our guest sets a weekly challenge for you guys, the listeners, to help you benefit your lives and live more like an adventure athlete. Now, if you want to check out any of the previous challenges, head over to adventureathletes.co.uk where you'll find the podcast section and a bit dedicated to the weekly challenge. Now, at the start of each episode, I like to give a shout out of someone that's been doing something absolutely incredible, and this week it is going to Ashley Kane, who is currently going for an Ultraman, where he's running from Land's End to John O'Groats, cycling back, and then he's going to be kayaking around the UK to finish it off. It is absolutely incredible what he's doing, and he's pushing himself way beyond what most people think is even possible. Talking about pushing yourself, something I'm doing this year is I'm going to be flipping a tyre until I've reached the distance of a marathon. It's now 10 weeks out, so it's coming up pretty soon. Every week just flashes by at this point, so I'm getting quite nervous but also very excited for that. I am fundraising for BigMoose, so if you want to donate, please click in the link in the description below where you can donate to my BigMoose fundraiser. There's also loads of other stuff down there, so you've got the WhatsApp community group that I've started, so you can keep up to date with adventure athletes. You can just join that and you'll get instant updates from everything we're doing. But for now, enjoy the podcast. What would your call to adventure be?
My call to adventure. So for me, it would be to push myself physically, so that mentally I am the best version of myself I can be. So that with lots of issues I've had in the past, which I'm sure we'll cover, that I can show up, basically for the wife, for the kids, show up for myself, and in order to give them what they need, I need to be the best version of myself, and to do that, I have found that I need to challenge myself, running, at the gym, maybe not even in a difficult race, just getting up consistently in the morning, 5, 6 o'clock, going out for a run, 2 miles, 3 miles, 10 miles, whatever that is. It's setting myself up for the day, basically setting myself up to say, right, that's it, now I'm on a win, let's go. The day is, we're already here. So yeah, that would be my call to adventure.
Where do you think that comes from within you? Where did that all start?
I think I've always had that in me. I was in the military at a young age, and I've always been quite fit and sort of outgoing, and as a kid, I used to just tear about outside of a football, chasing after people, running up and down the street. Where it's come from now is from sort of the last few years. I had a really bad mental health episode. I was in a job I hated. Well, I was in a job I loved, and very soon hated when, like I said, I like to be the best at not the best at everything. I like to be the best at what I can do. I like to do the best. I was in a job I loved. I enjoyed the work. And very soon it started sort of going off the rails. It wasn't quite what it seemed. I wasn't getting places where I thought I deserved to be. And I think that triggered a lot of stuff emotionally and mentally that I'd been storing up for years, like stuff from the army and sort of other stuff as I've gone through life. And I kind of, combining that with, I was at the gym a lot, and I kind of fell into that stereotypical, whoa, I'm pumping weights, kind of fucking aggressive attitude, and I just at work one day just fucking exploded, and it was just downward spiral from there, really, to basically counselling, and then leading me on to, well, lockdown come, and then that leaded me into the running, and then started pushing myself, and where I am today, which is realising that I need that kind of difficulty in my life from the, and the fact that I can get it from the physical fitness as something I love doing. I don't find it anywhere else. If I can give myself that difficulty from the runs, from a gym workout, from chucking my weight vest on and running up the field and doing press ups till I can't do anymore, it takes it out of my day, and alongside that, you have to take accountability for yourself, and I quit my job and got a new job that I love, and here we are today, really. It's but you've got to take that action for yourself. You have to be willing to, once you know what's going wrong and once you know where it is, there's no excuse. You know what you've got to do, and ultimately you've got to get out there and do it.
Yeah. Now we've just been on like a 2.5 hour run together. Mm-hmm.
Very enjoyable.
You've driven down 2.5 hours to get here as well, and you're driving back today.
Yeah.
That's like a lot of commitment to come and do something that like you're not even sure if you really want to do it. So like just having that mindset of I'm going to go out and do this thing, and like no matter what, it's going to happen. Like there's no barriers that are stopping you. No. How do you build up that sort of mental strength to overcome that? Because a lot of people and there's people that I've invited on the podcast, and they've got like way more free time than you. They might not have a family. They might not have like a full-time job. They're just going out doing adventures, and they're like, no, I'm not driving down for that. Like, I don't want to go do that. Like, what makes it different for you?
One, I've got a very understanding wife. Bless her. But so she knows what I need to do. It's not a need in that respect, but since I've got into this running and this especially sort of endurance stuff and testing myself and pushing my limits and seeing what I'm capable of, I'm like an open book now. I'm like, why not? I never used to listen to podcasts, never. And now I listen to them all the time. Yours, a lot, great podcasts, along with a few others. And then I started listening to these podcasts and then started relating a lot to it. Started following different people on social media, people that I sort of resonated with, that's a bit like me, or I kind of like that part of their journey. Listened to a few of your podcasts, and then when you asked me if I wanted to come down, I was like, well, yeah, why not? I looked at some of them and thought, well, like we spoke about on the run, God, they've done loads more than me, Some of them, like, compared to my running, I'm bang average. But then I was like, it's not about that, and everybody is so different. My 100 miler might be someone else's 200 miler, might be someone else's 10k. And if I can add something of value to somebody or gain something from it from myself, then what's there to lose? Because I think, like most men, don't like talking about stuff, especially not emotional stuff. Most men don't, and my wife will attest to that she'll probably hear stuff I put on social media or I'll say on here that she'll be like, well, you've never said that to me. And it's like, yeah, because it's not that I can't. I think subconsciously we just protect those people. We don't quite want you to know how deep and dark it goes sometimes, or how deep and dark it has been, because we're not there now. It's kind of irrelevant. And I've found how my life has changed since getting into this running and where it's taken me. I think if I can just even give somebody a little snippet of that goes, yeah, do you know what, I might try that, or I'm struggling. I need to change my job, or I need to go for a run, and it just flicks that little switch in them and can change their life. Then, You know, the fact that that might happen to me is enough to go, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you feel like you suffer with imposter syndrome at all? Like, it sounds like you sort of do, but then you also overcome it, so it's a bit paradoxical.
Yeah, because I fall into that trap that most of us fall into. I look on social media and I see what people have done, you know, and I've got people, friends of mine, guys at the running club that 10 times better runners than me, have finished numerous 100-milers in seriously good times. I chatted to you about one of the lads who just won the Coast to Coast that I DNF'd, and you know, I sometimes fall into that trap of looking at people like that and thinking, God, look what they've done. You know, fuck, that's another one I failed, you know. But I very quickly snap out of it, because like my main thing, especially I spoke to you a lot about today on the run, is that no two of us are the same. His 100-miler might be my 50-miler. Now he might try a 200-miler and suffer just as much as I do on a 50. And it's that realising that it's never the same for anybody. And even on the race, nobody's race is the same. Everybody's suffering is different. And I don't do it for podium places, because I know I'm never gonna be that fit. I'm never gonna be up there. But it's not about that for me. It's about, where can I take this? Like, where, and it's, I say it sounds cheesy, but the first time, my first 100k, I went straight from never really running 4 or 5 miles to about 18 or 19 miles through lockdown. And as soon as we were allowed to go out running again, I signed up to a 55k around Exmoor, and then straight into a 100k. I've never even done a half marathon or a marathon. And on that 100k, it was like 30 degrees. Race to the Stones, it was about 2 or 3 years ago now. It had extra water stations on. It was horrendous, the heat. And I went to some seriously dark places on that run. But the shit I put to bed, I got to the end of that race and I was just like, wow. Nothing to do with the race. It was like just the weight of all of that I'd kept here, you know, and I was dealing with, and I just suddenly realised, I was like, this is it. This is where I need to go. And I think pushing myself physically through the hardest thing I've ever done, that was like, what's that? That's fuck all. You know, that's gone. Don't even worry about that anymore. That's nothing. You know? And I think we just have to be careful that we don't get too caught up in what other people are doing. Like I've got the utmost respect for anybody that does anything like that. I will clap the first person in and the last runner in, and I think they're all as equally just as good. And that's why I like to share a lot of what I do, because we see a lot of famous people on social media that do great things, do great work for charity, but that a lot of them, yes, they've still got to put the hard work in, but they've got the resources, they've got the time, they've got the money to go and do these ridiculous challenges, whereas a lot of us haven't. And I think a lot of people think, well, I can't do that, what's the point? If I can't do that, you know, and it's not about that. It's saying that you can be perfectly normal, have a perfectly normal life, a 9-to-5 job. You can have issues, but there are tools out there that you can create for yourself to go out and get stuff done. And ultimately, there's always going to be people faster than you that can run longer than you. But likewise, you've only got to be in it a few weeks or months and look at all the people starting out who are nowhere near where you are now. So it's very paradoxical, like you said, but sometimes it does take over a little bit, you know, and the wife will say you're scrolling a lot, and I'll realise I've like getting sucked into a lot of all this, like, okay, now do that, oh, shall I do that, or shall I do that, or look what they're doing. And then you have to kind of just realise what I'm doing is enough at the minute.
Yeah, that's a very like healthy mindset to have, and I think a lot of people not that just listen to this podcast, but that come onto this podcast, and I'm including myself in this, struggle with that idea of being enough. Like, there's always more that you can do, and reaching your potential is this ever fleeting goal. Like, it's something you're never really going to truly reach, no matter how hard you try. Like, things are going to happen in life that hold you back, and it's just hard to get over that of being like, well, there's people out there doing more than me. Like, why can't I be doing more? Like, how do you have like any coping strategies, anything that sort of helps you have that mindset? Like, what brings you back out of that and being like, I'm content in where I am? Doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying, but I'm not going to be so hard on myself.
I think when I look back at where I've come from, doing these things and doing these fitness challenges, and what I've got out of it, that levels me out to be like, what I'm doing I wouldn't necessarily say it's enough, because I kind of never feel it's enough, but it's enough. It's enough to be where I need to be. We can always do more. And then I'll think, like, I always use Usain Bolt as a thing to sort of level me back out again. So probably one of the most talented sprinters on the planet has run world record after world record after world record, but probably has no idea what his potential is on an ultramarathon, because he's never needed to do it. He's only ever trained for those specific races for probably most of his life. So that's why when I look at something like that, I never worry about because none of us know what we're capable of.
Yeah.
Unless you go out there and give it a shot. And that's the crux of it. It's not, can you do it necessarily? It's what are you capable of doing? I don't care whether that's, like I said on the run, somebody that has got a massive passion for wildlife, and then all of a sudden decides, do you know what? I've always wanted to photograph that barn owl, but they get up early. They're early, but as soon as dawn's gone, they're away till dusk. So then get up at 5 o'clock. Get there an hour before. Get your pictures. Yes, that's not pushing yourself to a physical level, but it could be that start for, it. When I talk about like physical fitness is my thing. So that's what I need to do. I need to push myself physically to keep sane, to keep me on a level playing field, to be the best version of myself I can be, etc., etc. And I push that a lot, but it might not be for everybody. So you've got to find what your thing is. Now, if that is getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day for 6 months, and you finally get that shot, and then you're on National Geographic or whatever it is, or it's the best photo in your hometown, or you never ever show it to anybody. But you've had to push yourself out of your comfort zone to do something you've never done before to achieve what you wanted. And that's why I think it's so important from the mental health aspect to push yourself. I personally believe physical fitness is a massive thing for good mental health, and I think it should be prescribed on the NHS. I think it should be free. I think anyone with any issues should be able to go to a gym, a class, a spin class, a swimming pool, and with a note from the GP saying, I want to do some physical activity and I can't afford it or whatever. And they get a swimming lesson a week, or they get, a spin class a week, to start seeing, actually, I quite like this. When you wake up in the morning, it's like you got DOMS in the morning and your fucking legs, you're like, oh, I went too hard yesterday. But that pain is instantly a pleasure feeling of pain, because you're like, I've earned that. I know why my legs hurt, because I was squatting 200 kilos last night for reps or whatever it was. It's that pleasure side of it. It's not pain because you know, you've sat down and you've got sore legs because you never do anything.
Yeah.
You know.
I really like the Usain Bolt example there, and I've never thought of it like that, because I'll look at, like, a great example's Nathan Hutton, who just won the Wild Horse 200 race.
Yeah.
And I'll look at that and be like, oh, I reckon one day, like, I could do that. Why aren't I putting in enough work to be able to do things like that? But I would never look at Usain Bolt and be like, oh, I reckon I could do that. Why aren't I working hard enough to sprint 100 metres? Because it's just not, it's not me, for a start. And I don't know, it just almost seems unrealistic to think like that for that one example.
Mm-hmm.
But they're both pretty similar examples looking at it. They're the best at what they're doing. Like, I'd never sort of try and be like Eddie Hall. I'd never be like, oh, I can deadlift 500 kilos one day. Like, why aren't I working hard enough at that? But like I was telling you, I hit a PB deadlift of 210. I was over the moon with that.
Yeah.
But then if I do like a 50 miler, I might not feel great about that, because I'd be like, oh, well, why haven't I done a 100 miler yet? Why haven't I done a 200 miler? And I think it will come back to, like, what I do then achieve is just how much I'm willing to sacrifice for that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll never sacrifice my life to run 100 metres.
No.
It's just, it doesn't interest me.
And that's where that comes back to the not trying to worry too much about what other people are doing, because you hit a 210 kilo deadlift PB, right, and run, say, a 50k in, I don't know, 10 hours, 8 hours, say, right, brilliant. Eddie Hall hits a 500 kilo deadlift, but does that 50k in 14 hours. Who's better? Him because he can deadlift over twice what you can, or you because you can run the 50k faster than he can? And when you realise it's not about that, it's not about who's better, it's about the fact that your 210 kilo PB deadlift is his 500, and your 8 hour 50k is his 14 hour 50k.
Yeah.
That 14 hour 50k might be just as hard for him as your 8 hour 50k was. And vice versa, the PB, you might have strained every last bit of sinew in your body to get that up, and he did for the 50k, for his 500 kilo. So it's all relative. And that's why, really, you should use other people to inspire you and think, do you know what? I want to hit, I want to go for this, I want to go for that. But nobody's the same.
Yeah.
And when you realise that, it does make things a lot easier to go out and just do something, just to go and do it, because you don't care. I don't care whether someone's run that faster than me. I don't care whether 75 people will beat me, and I come 76 out of 76 people.
Yeah.
Because that race, to me, it's the only person that I am competing against is myself.
Yeah.
And that's the way I've treated it from day one. I'm not out there to beat anybody else. I'm out there to beat myself. Not even to beat myself. I'm out there to prove to myself that it's not, it doesn't all have to be about what's up here. We can either let it overcome us and sit there with that woe is me mentality of poor me, I'm fucking depressed, I feel like shit, so I'm just going to take it out on everybody else, I'm going to be stressy, and at times I still am a right stressy twat, and it'll be 9 times out of 10 because I didn't go running that morning, because the wife went to the gym or something, she does her stuff, I do my stuff, and she'll know straight away, you're stressy because you haven't run. No, I'm fucking not. And I know. I almost say it with a smirk because she's right, 100%. Yeah, it's because I've not done anything. I just need that. I don't have to be trying to beat myself all the time. I just need that physical side of it, It's not the distance sometimes, it's even if I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning every morning for a week and went for a 1 mile run, that's just the same for me as going out on a Saturday and running a 50k. Because I'm not giving myself the chance to just fester, you know.
Yeah. I think what you've done is like incredible in the fact that you've got over that comparison trap, and it's something that I try and get across to a lot of people, but I struggle with myself. And I feel like any ambitious person is like that. But like I was saying to you earlier, like I've done all these podcasts now, and one of the most inspiring guests I've had on is Andrew, who went from being massively obese, couldn't do like 100 meters, to then running ultra marathons in 12 months. And we've got a group chat, and in the group chat he's always posting being like, you guys inspire me so much. Like, I've just finished a ultra marathon, I came dead last. Technically I was like pushing the cut-off time, and they shouldn't have let me finish, but they did, and I almost gave up, and I had your voices in my head from the podcast being like, no, come on Andrew, get back up. And he's like, thank you for inspiring me. And then we're all there just in awe that he managed to like get himself going again. And like, if I was in his position and I was beyond the cut-off time, I'd just be beating myself up, being like, no, done, like, it's pointless, like, what am I doing? I'm not good enough to be here. So for him to get up and keep going again, it's just incredible, and we're all inspired by him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't think much of himself, and we're like, you're probably the most inspirational person in this group, and it's not because you're the fastest or running the furthest, it's just because you keep showing up day after day.
That is inspirational. That hearing that shit is brilliant. The fact, you know, and I see it with a lot of other people changing their lives like that, and it is amazing. And I always say, rooting for the underdog, rooting for the people at the back, because for them, you know, it's hard for them as it is for anybody. You know, they might be out there on their feet 3 times as long as a person who's just won it. But also that the more you see, I sometimes, you know, have that mentality of, oh, you know, I'm still not that good. But I've taught myself very quickly to say, no, I am fucking that good. Because again, it's only me against me. So me against me, I'm fucking winning all day long. I am better than me last week, I'm better than me last month, and compared to me last year, fuck me, I'm gold medal. Like, nobody can beat me. None of my me's from every single year back to you know, fucking when I was 18 can beat me right now where I am. And I think sometimes you've just got to have that kind of, it seems arrogant, but it's more like that positive self-talk to yourself to say, no, I'm fucking winning, look what I've done. Like, I've changed my life around, I'm in a fucking job I love. My mental health, my emotional health, my physical health is fucking leaps and bounds above where it was 3 years ago. My relationship with my wife and my kids is fucking 90% brilliant. Yeah, we row like everybody, you know, but everywhere my life is now compared to where it was, it takes me a click of a finger to think about it and go, no, fuck me, I'm winning. You know, when I have a bit of a down day, and sometimes I said to you before, I get that fog. We might have rowed over something fucking minuscule, and I sometimes slip back into that, and I'll just be just gone, fog, down it comes, and I'll sit there, and then, you know, she'll rant at me for a bit, and I'll be like, right, 10 minutes of her saying, come on, snap out of it, you don't need to be like that. No, fuck off. No. And then I'll be like, what the fuck are you doing? And it just, I have that kind of, look where the fuck you are now compared to where you were. And it's gone, instant, you know, and I'll be like, oh, sorry, you know. She knows, she's like, yeah, all right, well, you know, it's a lot less frequent than it ever used to be, you know. Still always there in little bits, and I think it probably always will be to some degree, but I've almost trained myself to have that kind of, no fucking come on, again and again. It's not about anybody else. It's like I said, if I put 10 me's on the start line going back for the last 10 years, I'll be at the fucking top of all of them. So that's my kind of, that's where I take that. And for someone like him, what he's doing is great. And I would say to him, just have that look at where you were, like look at what you've done. Where if you have, those days where you think, oh God, you guys are better than me. No, it's not about the other people. Look at yourself and look how much fucking better you are today than you were last week, last month, last year. And then see how your mindset changes when you start thinking of it like that. And you'll soon notice you're not worrying about what other people do, And again, I find that, like, I'll root for everybody. I'm in the running club and I love it. And I don't care whether someone's just their first 5K or has run a 5K in every county. And, some of them have run like nearly every park run there is to run. Some of them run marathons. Some of them have run sub 24, 25 hour 100 milers. I'll root for them all the same. Fucking brilliant. Because it's all individual. And if you can root for everybody the same as the way you'd root for yourself in the mirror, then you don't worry, that competition-y, they're better than me side of it. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. Something you've referenced quite a lot with me today is your mental health and how you used to be in like a really dark place. What sort of led you to the darkest point of your life, and what was that like for you?
So a combination of things, really. So I was in the army for 6 years-ish, 5 and a bit years, from 2002. Loved it, loved every minute of it. We had some bad times, lost a couple of guys on tour, lost one of the lads when we were training, stuff that now was quite a big thing. Back then it was kind of just is, it is what it is. Shit happens type mentality. And I think that was kind of stuff that came out, or I didn't realise had affected me as much. I think it made me very emotionless. That's probably one thing, my wife would be stood there now going, yes, 100% agree. My emotions are probably at a 1 out of 10. They used to be at a 0. I find it very, very hard emotionally not in it to be emotional. And if people are emotional around me, I'm just like, fuck's sake. Because it's kind of been, I know the army does that to you a bit, the military background, you try and snap that out here, and I think for the years from leaving the army, I kind of locked all that shit away, and then went through a spiral of, relationship breakdowns, just out on the piss all the time. What I thought was living my life. I thought, great, fucking, single bloke, living my life, out on the piss, drugs, fucking doing stupid shit, playing up, and I thought, yeah, this is fucking cool, this is great. And I've done that for years and years. Met my wife about 12, 13 years ago now, and kind of mellowed out a lot, stopped a lot of the going out and the drinking. But I think when my issues built up in this job that I hated, and the anger that was coming was from all of this. And now I sit and look back on it, I realise that I was just, a lot of who I was just trying to be somebody for other people. So I was trying to be the Joker. I was, if something was going on a night out, I'd want to be the one being the stupidest, the loudest, the drunkest, you know, just to show off. I think I was always trying to earn people liking me, when in reality they were just liking what I was doing, not actually liking me. And when I started thinking about that, it started affecting me quite a lot, because I was like, fuck, like, who the fuck am I? Like, and I was right at my worst moment in this job, where I'd had a fucking wobble, and I was like, right, this is it, I'm leaving, I've got to have time off. And it had all come to a head, and it was almost not like sort yourself out or I'm leaving you, but the wife was like, you cannot carry on like this. This is fucking unfair on me. It's certainly not fair on you. You know, the kids. Although I didn't have my youngest at that time. You know, and not that I took anything out on the kids or anything, but I was a very stressy person. You know, very snappy. And I just suddenly felt lost. Like, more lost than... it's so hard to describe. Every day, I was just like, this is it. Like, what? Who? What the fuck? Like, and then I started having, you know, I started thinking about shit I'd done when I was younger, and started getting like I said to you on a run, I started getting embarrassed about stuff I'd done. And I was like, what the fuck? And it all just, and I couldn't cope with whatever it was that was trying to eat away at me, and I just fucking lost it at work, and that was it. And I think I left work, and the next day went straight into a counsellor. I basically just got all this stuff off my chest, and that's when I then started running. Realised the counselling was great for the initial kind of, let's get all this shit out there and have a cry and a blub for an hour. Probably didn't really make much sense. And then, yeah, that was back before round about lockdown time, yeah, so like 2019. So only seems like yesterday, but it's a long way away. But yeah, I was just, and I kind of, like, it's so hard to describe where I was, because I still don't really know now. But like, so we lost one of our guys in training, drowned, and it was fucking horrible. And I didn't realise at the time that I don't think there's been a day since, and it's probably just over 20 years now since it happened, maybe nearly 22 years, that there hasn't been a single day that I haven't thought about that. Not a single day. And when I realised that, along with that, and it was very cutthroat, kind of shit happens, done, move on. That's the military, you know, you just get on with it. That now I look back, that led into other stuff, like when family members have died, and I've kind of been upset, but then I was kind of like very much like, oh, shit happens, you know, it's done, that funeral's done, get over it. And I think it was more the emotional, like I said, my emotion level is like there. And because I kept that lid on it, I described it as like being a pressure cooker, and I'd kept that lid on for like 20 years. And then one day, poof, that catch failed, and it was just like, fucking, yeah. And I don't really remember the couple of days sort of around that time, because I was just, like, I just had this, have you ever had like such a head cold that your whole face feels like it's like going to explode? And it was just like that. Just this fog of like, just, yeah, I can't even describe it. This fog of like 20 years of thoughts and emotions and shit you did and that, and it's like ping, 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 boom, 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 boom in your head. And it had just come out spectacularly, and a right firework. And a pretty shit firework at that. And then, yeah, And that's where we got to, the running, the fitness.
Yeah.
This is how we now stay on top of it. It's out there now. I can talk about it. I know when I'm having days where I'm like, we all get things that wind us up. I love my job, but still little bits that annoy me. And I'll go home, and then I know. Right, I know what that is. Don't take that home. Don't take that indoors. I'll go for a run tonight. It's gone. Boom, just like that. And that, for me, was the biggest kind of flick switch that I realised, for me, that is what sorts me out.
Yeah. Do you feel like that mentality that you had of the doesn't matter, just get it done, has some benefits to it? Because listening to your story, and especially the stuff you told me on the run, which I definitely want to go more into, of like dealing with pain when you're out on these ultra endurance things and the limits you're willing to push yourself on, it seems to come from the same mindset of it doesn't matter, keep going.
Yeah. So I say I've always had that kind of resilience in me. I said to you on the run, my first 3 years in the army, I had a hernia and nobody knew about it. And it was that bad, it used to poke out where it shouldn't. And I would, in a morning, I would have to literally grit my teeth, poke it back up, wear like the tightest fucking pants I could in the hope that it would stop it poking out again, or like tape around it, and get on with all my military training the same as everybody else. And the pain sometimes was indescribable, and there were days there where I'd go to the med centre and I'd get a biff chit for being sick for a couple of days because I just couldn't fucking take any more pain. And but yeah, I'd refuse to quit. I couldn't quit. I couldn't tell anybody because I'd have been back squatted. I didn't want that. And then, you get the usual, oh, you're on the biff, you're sick chit, oh, fucking weak. Oh. And I would be like, if you only fucking knew, like, what I'm dealing with. And I still got through it, and I still did all, I would have even kept going with it, probably into my telic deployment, but it was only during training for that I got kneed in the balls that it just kind of went one night, and next thing I know I was in Salisbury District having it operated on. And so that was that. Since then it's always given me kind of, I say chronic pain. It's chronic pain when it's there. It's not always there, but sometimes it's just like, but again, now it's been that long, I don't even notice it. So when I've done these ultras and I've had typically bloody injuries that, again, I never really speak about on the day. So my ARC DNF, I made 59, 60 miles to Land's End, but I'd run 40 miles of that with my knee in so much pain that I was literally crying for miles. But I can't quit. I can't give up. It's just ingrained into me. And I don't quite know where it comes from. Probably from those very first early days in the military. And maybe I'm just a bit lucky I've got that kind of attitude anyway. And I just couldn't quit. Yeah, I timed out. I didn't make it. But I didn't quit. Again, my coast-to-coast DNF is just gone. I'd done something to my foot a few days before. And I mean, you've seen the lump on my foot today. And again, I didn't say anything to anybody. I've got people crewing for me. I don't want to let people down. I don't want to pull out. And for about 30, 40 miles, I just gritted my teeth. And it eventually, until it stopped. And yeah, so subsequently DNF that. And that, don't quite know where that went wrong, but long story short, I fell asleep pretty much. Didn't really know what I was doing or where I was. I didn't even know I told my crew I was done until I read my messages back and they were coming to get me. So you can technically say, yeah, I quit maybe, but as far as the pain threshold goes, you know, and that resilience to like, this foot is not going to fucking stop me. So you might as well. And that's where I told you, but I love a bit of Goggins, you know, and I'm like, almost talking to myself going, you might as well just stop telling me it hurts, because I'm not going to stop. Unless I get timed out or something goes wrong, drastically wrong. You know, I'm not talking about walking on a broken leg or something ridiculous, because it'd be impossible. But that, I'm not, and you know, next thing I know, it's not hurting. You know, and the minute I'd finished, it was agony. You know, but I do truly believe that you can control this if you want. You can tell yourself, if you just, I don't know whether it's something you can learn or something might just be there, you know, but I don't know what will make me quit. I don't know. I do not know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, where my threshold is, where my limit is in anything. I'm never going to be, like I said, I'm never going to be the fastest, but I kind of love that idea that I almost like the fact that something's wrong, because not only am I doing this ultramarathon and trying to run 100 miles, my foot is fucked. Yeah. And I'm still going it, and that's not to be, oh yeah, look at me, I can run with an injury. That's purely, like I said, that's me against me, and it's not winning. You know, old me is not winning. Old me is the bad foot. Come on, doesn't matter. There's other races. You know, no. New me's today. New me's winning, and I truly believe I get positive. You know, I don't know what I get from it, but it's not negative.
Yeah. I really resonate with that, and the fact that you don't know where it comes from makes me feel a bit better that I don't know where it comes from either. Like when I was doing my 496 challenge, on day like 25 I had a stress fracture in my foot. On days 29 and 30 I was literally throwing up and shitting myself, like, but I did not stop. And I was doing it around work, and there were days where I was like running and crying and being like, I don't know if I'm going to make it in time. And everyone's just like, you're in pain, like you're throwing up everywhere, just stop. And I was like, I'm not going to stop. Like, yeah, I'm crying in pain. And they're like, why are you putting yourself through this torture? And I'm like, because I know I can go through it. Like, I know I'm going to get through it. And if I time out, I time out. That's beyond my control. All I know is I'm giving it my fucking best shot, and I will stick to that till the day I die. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea where that comes from. Like, there's just something in me that will just not let me quit.
I think it's that internal fight to know that it's like fight or flight. Yeah. Thousands of years ago, if you stop running, you're not eating, because you ain't going to catch it. Yeah. And you're going to die. And I think there's that very basic level in all of us. I just think some people can't tap into it, or don't try to tap into it, that, yeah, you can stop running and come home, you've got a fridge full of food, you know, you're not going to die unless you have a heart attack on the run or you get hit by a car or something. But there's that instinct in you to be like, no, I'm not, I can't, this isn't going to, you know, this isn't going to beat me. I don't care how tired I am. I don't care if it hurts. I'm just going to go through it. I'm just going to keep pushing. And I think I think that is what people struggle the most with me, or I get a lot, is why? And I'm like, why not? You know, I heard a great quote. I'm actually thinking about getting it for a tattoo, because it would look sick. It's called The Rebirth, and it's about an eagle. So I don't quite know what type of eagle it is, but there's this eagle that say lives for 50, 60 years, right? It gets to 20, 30 years, and its feathers are tatty. Its claws, its talons aren't as sharp as they used to be. It's lost the point of its beak, it's not as sharp. And it can fly, it flies off into solitude. Now, it can either choose to just die, or do what it does, which is pluck its shit feathers out, snap its beak off on the rocks, and pull at its talons so that its beak grows back stronger and sharper than it was, its feathers grow back, and its talons grow back, and it can live another 20 or 30 years. Because it just decides instinctively, I'm not going to keel over and die. Keel over and die is the metaphor, I'm not just going to give up. I don't care whether it doesn't mean anything. You push yourself through a bit of suffering, just like that eagle does, and look what is on the other side of it. And I think you can do that so many times. Like where I am now, great. My next race, I might push myself even harder and unlock even more. And that for me is like, you just don't know what the fuck you can unlock.
Yeah.
Like how much better than me can I be? And so far I've not, and none of it's never negative. I never finish a race. I might be disappointed, but like I DNF this coast to coast, and my first post was not negative. I'm not even disappointed. Just 61 miles of lessons, because nobody will know, even if I explain it to them, just how hard those 61 miles were with my foot the way it is, and I still got that far. And I'm like, that's a fucking win. That's another tick for me. That's another win. That's another win for the books, And I wish you could sell it. I wish you could make that feeling into a pill and go, I have one of them. And then you tell me that you're now not going to do anything about your situation.
Mm.
If that pill could give you that feeling just once, but now you know what you need to do to go and get it. I think, like I was saying to you, on that view we had, and all these people that have got issues and never do anything about it, how different their lives would be if they just walked that half mile from their house and had a cup of tea and looked at that, and they don't even realise where that would take them.
Yeah.
And I just wish, that's why I push it so much. I love and I hate social media for all the same reasons most people do. There's so much crap out there, but there's also so much good stuff. And that's why I try and push what I do a lot on social media. Purely because I want people to see that, yes, it can be fucking shit. And you can hit the shittest, darkest hole you've ever been in. But you can easily get out of it. So that's why I don't accept people that just stay where, so it's not my fault. No, it's nothing. No, you can fucking help yourself. You really can. You've just got to. And if you're not helping yourself, it's not because you can't. It's because you don't want to. And that for me is like I said, I wish I could bottle it. I mean, I've done, I reckon, probably close to the day 18 months sober. And when I say sober, I was never an alcoholic. It must be a lot more difficult for people who are alcoholics, dependent on it. But again, for me, it's like, I don't really drink. Maybe one or two after run club. I'm just going to knock that on the head. And that's like another little win. Because from that's then more lessons, because you don't realise until you do something like that, wowzers, who's not around anymore? Because I don't want to be like that anymore. I don't want to, because for me, drinking was go out and get smashed. It was never just a nice pint in the sun. It was, I have one, I want to get smashed. Now, it was very infrequent over the last few years, definitely, but still that feeling it gave me for days after of like, you know, hungover, like tired. So I stopped drinking. And I said to you on the run, that one period of my life has been the best but the loneliest. Because nobody, that, and I still can't work it out to this day why that one thing is the one thing that people find the hardest to understand, that I just don't drink. Like, it's such a, to me, it's even like, people can understand your mental health issues, people can understand going out and pushing yourself, doing silly challenges, but that for me was like the next thing, and it's like, I just can't understand why people can't understand it.
It's so accepted in society these days, isn't it? And it's become such a staple of like British culture, is going down the pub, having a pint.
You're supposed to drink.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you're not supposed to do anything.
But what I think is crazy about that whole idea, because I get it, like I haven't had alcohol in 7 years. And what I don't get about it is, with the way the world is now and how people are, and they're really into pushing themselves, they're really into their health and fitness, and there's a big boom in it recently, but drinking's still prominent. And it's like, if you brought out, like if alcohol didn't exist and you brought out alcohol now and tried selling it to people and being like, oh, we got this drink, might make you a bit violent, might make you do stupid things, might make you feel a bit good, but you're also going to feel like shit the next day. Like, do you want it? Everyone would be like, are you fucking crazy? Like, I don't want that. Like, why would I want that? I'll just have this other drink. And that, like, people that are like, oh, I just drink because it tastes nice. It's like, there's lots of other drinks that taste nice.
Yeah.
And, like, it's just so ingrained in society now that it doesn't matter when you look at it on paper and how shit it is, and, like, how bad for you it is and all the negative side effects. Like, it's just part of what you do.
Yeah.
And I don't get how people can't escape that trap.
No, see, I've never been preachy with it. Like, if people want to drink, fine. I'll happily sit with people who are drinking. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. But I am seeing like a massive, especially with this generation now, these teenagers. Yes, they drink. Not all of them. It's probably a lot less than when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing this massive like cultural shift in people are like, I know because pubs have closed a lot and there isn't the places to go. I mean, Ilfracombe used to have like, I don't know, 17, 18, 19 pubs or something ridiculous like that. You could go anywhere when I was a teenager and there'd be a pub open somewhere to drink, something different going on. Now there's about 2, 3. But I'm seeing this massive shift in people that are like, no, like there is so much more. And I think this is where social media has such a good influence. There is so much more we can do than go to the pub and get smashed and ruin Saturday and Sunday. Because Friday was a quiet couple, but you got absolutely trolleyed. Then you just top yourself up Saturday and Sunday's a write-off. These people are like, no, fuck me, we're going to go camping and climb Penny Fan. You know, and share it all over Insta. Look at this is beautiful, it's amazing. And I see shit like that and I'm like, that's like amazing.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Like my eldest now says, I'm never going to drink. And I'm like, well, don't say you're never going to drink, because if you never want to drink, you never want to drink. That's great. But you might want to drink. And there's no, just because I don't, doesn't mean, because I used to cane it. But he has seen me hungover, not being able to go out on a Sunday because I've been throwing my guts up. Been like, oh, I don't never want to be like that. And I'm like, to me, I can see that in him now, that shift from everybody else. He's like going out with his mates, doing other stuff. They go to the driving range, you know. They go into festivals. Now, he's not drinking, he's not technically old enough to drink, but we all know kids can drink when they want, if they want to. But they're not. They're just going and enjoying being out there. And I see stuff like, and I think it's great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I've got nothing against people who drink. But I do think it has a huge impact in regards to mental health and where people find themselves. Because I could go and point out loads of people I know who've got issues, mental health issues, or feel a bit depressed. They all drink. And I'd love to know if you could go on, just stop drinking. 6 months. Some of them, and I bet a lot of them, will probably never drink again. If they, and I would never know just how much of an impact it had on me. Because like I said, especially over the last few years, I never really drank that much. But where I am now, I'm quite happy if I never drank again. Because I'd never want to know if that was a little catalyst to just add into whatever else I had, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I do hope it. I mean, everybody says it's the worst thing. It's worse than smoking. It's worse than drugs. It's worse than smoking weed. But yet, it's so, like you said, it's so prevalent. It's almost like a rite of passage. You have to have that stage of, you know, and we used to like congratulate people for getting that pissed and being that hungover and throwing up all the next day. And I just, yeah, I'm glad I can see that change in it now. But for me, I think people will understand. But I don't think unless like, obviously they've not been in my situation, they've not been me. So maybe they don't understand why I don't drink. Like, well, you could just have one. I could just have one. But I don't need to. Just the same reason that I'll never drink a non-alcoholic beer. Because I don't need people to think I'm drinking a beer. I'll quite happily sit there with a can of Diet Pepsi.
Yeah.
Because it's not about that. And that, yeah, I've waffled on a bit about that, but that's
I think it's summed up by, what's the first thing people ask you when you turn 18? Oh, you going down the pub?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. You're old enough to drink, get down the pub.
Yeah.
That's British culture right there.
Yeah.
And I'm similar to you. I don't have anything against people that drink. What I've got an issue with is taking it too far.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with anything. Because people will probably look at me and be like, well, is flipping a tyre for a marathon any good for you? Probably not. I could probably just do a weight session and not push it that far. But I'm just trying to get the most out of what I know I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, for me, just even one drink would take some of that potential away.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm not against drinking. Go out, drink. Don't take it too far, because what are you missing out on? What is that making you sacrifice? Like you said, you're hungover the next day. You can't do a thing that you might like. That's your weekend written off.
Yeah.
Back to work on Monday.
And hindsight's a wonderful thing in it, and I think we all realise in 10, 15, 20 years' time, society will be like, shit, we didn't realise just what the issues this would cause, along with, you know, drugs, everything else. They slowly realising. But it's like I said to you about, I love a bit of Goggins, and that one quote of his that I always play over in my head, and I'm not religious in any stretch of the imagination whatsoever. But when he says, he used to think to himself, what happens if he died and he goes to heaven and he sees this board with Goggins on it and all this shit he's done throughout his life, and he's looking at it going, I've not done that. I've never run 100 miles, I've never done that. And God turns around and says, no, that's who you could have been. And that's not who you were. And that, for me, as cheesy as that sounds, is like, well, like I said to you, it makes the hair stand up on me, because I'm like, yeah, well, what if? What if that happens? And I go somewhere and someone says, yeah, you could have been so much more than what you were. And I'm like, fuck, I could have been. I'd rather get somewhere and someone says, you couldn't have done any more. You did you gave everything your best shot. Whatever it was, job, fitness, family, house, you couldn't have done any more. You're happy. now you can go off and, you know, your soul can rest in eternal peace or whatever. You know, I'm not going to be haunting people if any of that shit exists. But, and that's like one thing I cannot get that out of my head. That what if, you know, and that's why I think that's why I like to push myself a lot, because it's, I could never accept, I don't think I could ever accept if somebody said, you know, you could have been so much better. You could have done this, you could have done that. And that's, it's food for thought.
Yeah. I feel like some people will struggle with that idea of like, imagine what you could do, because they will just feel like they could never actually do it. Mm-hmm. And I've been there myself when I was coming out of like homelessness and my ankle break, and it's the one time I've quit anything. The first time I tried the Welsh 3000s, and I quit like not even like a third of the way in, and I was like, no, I'm done, because I'd been coming back from like nothing for years, and I started having those thoughts of maybe I just can't do these things. Like, I know that I could have before, but I can't anymore. And that was like the darkest place for me, is failing something, giving up on something, and thinking like, I should be able to do more, but I can't bring myself to do it. Like, how do you get over that? Because for me, like, there was just something where I wallowed in that for a few months, and I was just depressed. And then I was like, no, like, I can do it. And I don't know what made that switch, but I remember I woke up one morning, I shaved all of my hair off, and I was like, this is it now. Like, next challenge, 12 weeks, I'm doing one of the challenges I set myself. Because that was the first of my 12 challenges. Yeah. And I fucked it up. And I was like, I really wish I hadn't told people I was doing 12 of these now, because I can't even do one. And I was like, no, this is going to be like a new me. Shaved all my hair off, and I was like, this is it. And then since then, I've been building on that momentum. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are in that same space that I was in, but can't bring themselves to do the challenges. Like, how would you help them along that journey?
I think that's probably the hardest bit for anybody, is the getting started. Because, again, we all sit there, what if I don't do it? What if I don't win? What if I'm crap? What if I fail? What if I'm laughed at? What if I go to somebody with my ideas and they laugh me out the door? I think that is where you can have the best support network. Some people have got no support network. Some people have got a great support network. I've got a great support network with my wife and kids. They support me in everything I do. They're always, the wife might roll her eyes every now and again when I come back from an ultramarathon. I'm always talking about what's next, and can't even walk properly yet. But regardless of that support network, you have to be your own champion of yourself. You have to be able somehow, and for others it might take longer, you have to be your own biggest supporter. You have to start thinking of yourself as the best you are, the best thing that there is. I am going to be the best I can be today. Tomorrow, I am going to be the best I can be today. The next day. You have to say it in the mirror if you need to. At some point, nobody can do it for you. And it's not just going to come. At some point, and I can't remember when it was, I made the decision to start running. Yeah. To sign up for a longer race. At some point, I just flicked that switch and just went, fuck it, let's just do it. Because again, but what's the worst that could happen? You enter a 55k ultramarathon, and I scraped the cutoff, I think, by like 14 minutes. What happens if I hadn't have done that? I'd have just done something else. Because I know now that mentality was never about winning that event. It was about me. It was about beating me. And I think if you can just give yourself that sliver of, what's the word I'm looking for? Positivity, you know, and just get out the door and go and do something. Before you know it, they say like 30 days you create a habit. Before you know it, and it might be running to start with, and you might branch into someone else and go, I'm not really keen on running, but I know I do power walking, or I do swimming, or whatever it is. You have to give yourself that little bit of belief. It's not all, you know, miracles and sparkly unicorns, and you have to at some point go, no, I need to take fucking action here. I cannot go on like this. And regardless of anything else around me, it starts today.
Yeah.
And then you just go and fucking do it. And I guarantee you now, once people do that, week, 2 weeks, 3 months down the line, they'll be like, fuck me, why didn't I do this 2 years ago? Why didn't I do this last year? What, you know? And they'll be, and they'll know. They'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Something I heard recently from, I think it was Tony Robbins, was if you tell a lie big enough, loud enough, and long enough, even you'll start to believe it. So you literally can just start lying to yourself, and like you said, just be like, no, I am better than this. And I think for me, after I'd set myself these 12 challenges, and I was like, no, I am going to do this, and I am good enough for this, and by no stretch of the imagination was I actually any capable of doing them. Like 2 years ago, thinking of flipping a tyre for a marathon, there is no way I'd have been able to do that. Like, I'd failed doing essentially just a hike. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, oh no, I could flip a tyre for a marathon. And I've just told myself that lie long enough that it's starting to just happen.
Yeah.
Like, because I've got that belief in myself of like, there's no way I'm not going to flip the tyre for a marathon. I've said it so many times on like all the podcasts, all my socials, that I can't even think of what it's like to not believe that I could do it.
No. And that's where, as well, say you only make 20 miles. Have you failed? You haven't failed. If you only make 20 miles and you cannot physically do any more, your arms are falling off and your back's fucked, you haven't failed. And I think that is what people need to realise as well when they set out to try and improve themselves, is you can have all these ideas and these challenges and these visions, and it's fucking brilliant, and I hope you smash the marathon. I hope you get further than that. But also, if you only make it 20 miles, you haven't failed. You've just flipped a tyre for 20 fucking miles. Like, that's no fail. That should be, again, and it's different for everybody. Who knows what you'll learn about yourself when you're doing that? Who knows how far you'll go? But you have to make sure, and this, I think, probably the most important thing is that for me, it's not a fail. I wanted to run 100 miles. I've entered 2 races, probably one of the hardest in the UK, potentially being the Arc of Attrition. Coast to coast, equally quite a hard race. And I wanted to do them. I talked about them. I raised over £1,000 worth of money for charity on the first one, and I didn't complete either of them. But I never once called them a failure, because to me it wasn't. Because I learnt so much, and that mindset I've got myself to, all I could take from it was the wins, the positive, the running through the pain, and not being able to quit, the fact that I've just run 100k, you know? How many people don't do that? Learning to take all that positivity from it, ignoring the fact I didn't complete it, helps. It helps elevate again, you know? So I 100% would be rooting for you to smash it. But for me, as like a, not no, I'm no expert at giving out advice or anything like that. But if you only make 20 miles, don't see it as a fail.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a fail. It's you will need to look at that if that is the situation you find yourself in, and look at all the wins you can take from that, because there'll be hundreds.
At what point in that, using that example of the tyre marathon, would you consider it a fail? Like, is there, like, say I only do a mile, like, have I failed then?
No, because you're only, again, in the way I look at things, you're only against yourself. Have you ever flipped a tire? Have you ever flipped a tire a mile before?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
So if you only make it a mile, you've already done more than you've ever done flipping a tire.
Yeah.
And although, you know, you can have these goals, and people might look at your goals and think, a marathon, flipping a tire? Fucking hell, no chance. But they've ultimately got no idea. You know? They might not be able to flip. I might think that, cool, for a marathon, that's quite far. But I've never tried flipping a tire. I might never make it a mile. So if you only made it a mile, me personally, have you failed? No. If you made 10 miles, and then you were like, fuck it, you know, right, I'm doing this again next year, I'm doing it again, and you only made 8 miles, but you've already done 10 before, but this time you only made 8, it's still, to me, it's not a fail. You can't think of it as a fail, because you're just learning, you know? It's all, what's the word I'm trying to look for? It's all kind of, you need to use it as like, what's the word I'm trying to look for here? Can't think now, I've gone completely blank. You can't let that negativity sink in. Yeah, so it doesn't matter whether you finish 5 miles short of the previous one you've ever done. You have to take the positive. Yes, there will be negatives. If you want to take the negatives from it, they're all there. But equally, there's just as many positives. And if you just look at the positives, no, how can you fail?
No.
You know, say you do that. Say you flip that tire 26 miles, right? And then someone goes out the day after you and does 40. Would your achievement be any less?
No.
There you go. Because it's yours. And only you know what you're capable of. See, that's why this is where it goes back to what we were talking about at the start, and trying not to compare yourself to other people, to athletes, to social media, to, you know, you're only ever competing against yourself. And if you only look for the positives, you can only ever win. And if you can only ever win, then going forward, life should be easy. Or easier.
Essentially, what I've taken from that is that failure is just a mindset.
Yeah, 100%.
No, that's really good advice. And I've never seen it like that. I've been one of these people that just sets these challenges, these goals, and they're all just arbitrary things that I've just plucked out of the air. Mm-hmm. Like, who said that flipping a tyre for a marathon is a good idea? Like, where's that number come from? Well, I've chosen the marathon because it's a recognisable distance. Everyone can look at a marathon and be like, wow, people run those and that's hard. Mm-hmm. Now imagine doing this hard thing for that distance. Like, it's a concept that's easy to understand. Mm-hmm. But if I'd set out and been like, oh, I want to flip a tyre for 20 miles, people would still understand that that's hard, but it just doesn't have that same ring to it almost.
No.
So it's weird how we just come up with these goals, and then if we don't make it, we failed.
And I hate the word failure. I hate the word failure with a passion, because say someone climbs Everest, and I don't know what's Everest, 8,000 meters, something like that. I don't know the I know this base camp. I don't know the other bits. But say you climbed Everest, and you only made 6,000 meters. You had to come back down because you couldn't handle the oxygen deprivation or whatever it is you get. The storyline would be, British climber fails to reach summit on Everest. Not British climber has just climbed to 6,000 meters above sea level, spent weeks and months training physically, mentally, and has probably had one of the best adventures of their life. No, we just say they failed to reach the summit. And as soon as that's just that word, failed to reach the summit. Oh, it's there, isn't it? Failed. You're a failure. Oh, I'm a failure. You're not a fucking failure. Like, you've just attempted to climb one of the biggest mountains in the world, and you didn't make it this time. I wish people could see that and just get rid of that word and not think about it. I'd urge anybody that uses that word, just stop using it. Try and saying, not this time. Or, next time I'll do it. You haven't failed. I don't like that word.
Yeah.
I think it's a very negative mindset.
Yeah. We're gonna wrap the podcast up now. And the one question I ask all my guests to finish it off is, what challenge would you set for the listeners for this week?
Oh, what challenge? So based on sort of what I like to do and where I am, and that whole mindset of just pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, just seeing where it can take you, would be to just do something you don't do. So if you go out running 5 miles a day, Monday to Friday, one of those days, get up an hour early and run that loop twice. If you only go running in your evenings and you say you haven't got time, set your alarm, get up early, go out before everybody's up, go and do all your workouts in the morning. Do something. It doesn't have to be running, go to the gym, go to some exercise classes. Do something you don't normally do, or do something you normally do, but do it twice, do it 3 times, and just see where that small little difference, where just see where, what it gives you, where it takes you sort of mentally, and that kind of, just those little wins that you get from doing stuff like that, and how that then, like, I'm a massive advocate for doing stuff in the morning because it sets you up for your day. Get your fitness done in the morning, get your runs, your swim, if you've got the time. There's always time, but so ultimately it would be just pick something you do now, and do more of it. Or if you're not doing something, go and do it. If you don't like swimming, go and sign up for a week's worth of swimming lessons, just to shift that. I'm not talking about trying to run 100. If you want to go try and run 100k, and then go and try and run 100k, because I'm sure what lessons you'll get from that will be phenomenal. But just as a small wins, go and do something you haven't done before, and see sort of, see where that leads you, see what avenues that creates.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming down. I know it was quite a long drive for you, and I really appreciate the time, and thanks for coming on the run with me this morning.
Yeah, no, it was great fun. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, no worries. Where can people find you online if they want to follow your journey and hopefully see you push beyond that 100k plateau you're at?
So, yeah, Instagram, steve.w.1985 is my Instagram handle. It's just sort of everyday life. I like to show all of it, the running, the family side of it, the work side of it, just to show people that, you can do stuff with limited time, or around, busy family lives like we all have. Or Steve Ultra Runner on YouTube. I'm just sort of getting into doing a bit of YouTubing and talking about resilience and challenges, and more kind of where the podcast has been going today, really just trying to help people see that they can help themselves. But that's, very basic with that. I've got, like I said to you, I've got videos with 2 views and videos with 2,000 views, so it's quite, but I quite like where that's going. I quite like messing about with that, so yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Well, thanks again. And yeah, I'm sure we'll stay in touch.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. If you want to find out more about our guests, check out the links in the description below, where you'll also find a link to our website, our socials, and my BigMoose fundraiser. Let us know in the comments who you want to hear from next, and we'll try and get them booked on as best we can. And if you want to get involved with anything Adventure Athletes, we've got so many things going on. We've got our programming that we'll do for people trying to take their next step into their own personal adventures. We'll do sports massage. We've got events that we're organising both online and in person, and we've got some different activity days based around getting you outdoors and learning something new. So if you want to get involved, check out the website. If you want to find out more about the guest, check out the links in the description, and yeah, let us know who you want on next.